this video is Seriously Casual's how to fix the tunneling problem. We just talked about the DC problem. Now we're talking about the tunneling problem. Tunneling has been a thing in DBD for as long as it has been a thing. Like I've said before in the last tunneling video, we talked about this. Tunneling is a problem because it's one of those things that sweaty people do, which is more indicative of a comp environment at 4 or 5 gens, and it's really obnoxious. But it's a very, very good tool to use when a match is going or getting out of control, which is often not your fault when it comes to like proof, hyper-focus toolboxes, stuff like that. BMPs. It's a way to get your pressure back on the survivors that may be kind of like cheesing the meta to get ahead of you. So you don't want to delete it as a catch-up tool, so you can't get rid of it entirely. But you can't keep it out of the hands of the people that try to do it 4 or 5 gens, treating the game like a comp match. And that's kind of always been the problem with tunneling that's really frustrating, is because there's kind of no way to keep it in the hands of people who use it as a catch-up tool versus people who want to treat DBD like a comp competitive environment and sweat their hearts out. So yeah, let's see how Seriously Casual would deal with this. I just put the link in the Twitch chat. It will be down in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. Please support the official release of said video. Because this is not our content that's provided for us, so you should support the official release by liking and subscribing to the channel.
Recently, Behavior have been making some great changes to Dead by Daylight. The action indicators make solo queue an overall much better experience. The challenge prompts make doing challenges less frustrating and more fun to do.
I've already made this video, but I do think the gen progress is a little much on this left side, but that's okay.
And base kit borrow time, along with reassurance, makes countering camping much more practical. But despite all these good changes, Dead by Daylight faces a growing problem. That problem being tunneling. When I was recording footage for my medkit video, I played a good few solo queue survivor games. And throughout these games, tunneling was present in almost all of them.
Out of all the matches I play, there's always tunneling. I feel like it's 1 out of 5 matches I don't have a tunnel. I'm not even exaggerating. Most matches I play, there's at least an attempted tunnel, even if it's not on me. Tunneling happens almost every game in Dead by Daylight, and it didn't used to be this way. And I'm sure he's going to go over that in the video. It didn't used to be this way. Now tunneling happens almost every game of Dead by Daylight. And it's something.
What was most unfortunate about the tunneling, though, was the fact that it felt like there was nothing I could do to stop it. Nowadays, tunneling is becoming increasingly common. In this video, I'm going to talk about why this is and how we could possibly fix Dead by Daylight's tunneling problem. To start off, let's first go over what exactly is tunneling. While this may seem like an obvious question, tunneling can mean different things to different people.
Yep.
To put it simply,
I got called tunneler once or twice today. And I'm like, wait, I hooked another person before I came back to you. Like, to them, me attacking them at all off of hook, even if I've hooked other evil people in between that, counts as tunneling. And that's just like, what? Hello?
Tunneling is generally seen as focusing one survivor and hooking them consecutively while ignoring every other survivor. This leads to a generally unpleasant experience for the tunneled survivor. They don't get a break from chases to heal or to reposition themselves and are usually out of the game prematurely. If done effectively, the match becomes a 3v1 very early on.
Even without like even just like not even considering like base kit BT, like the person that comes off hook is always the easier chase, just on the basis that a healthy chase is like 30 to 40 seconds if you're quick, where because you have to eat through 2 health states. Person off hook only has 1 health state. They have endurance, but if you just wait 10 seconds, it's gone. So it's like the person that only has 1 health state will always be the easier chase. Always more efficient.
You don't need me to tell you how hard it is for the remaining survivors to win when they only have 3 players and most of the gens left. Because of all this, it is in the survivors' best interest to try and stop the killer from tunneling. But how can survivors stop tunneling? Currently, there are a few counters to tunneling, but I believe they just fall short of being a truly effective counter.
Yep, they all don't really do the job.
I'm going to go over each of the counters and explain why I think they don't truly stop tunneling. First, let's look at base kit borrow time. Base kit borrow time allows you 10 seconds.
I was doing this today. I was using Stabiffle Game of Foot on Adriana, what's her name? Skull Merchant. There were so many people today that unhooked in my face, and I just looked at the person that came off and went, smack. Right away, and I have 8 stacks of Stabiffle, so I smack them, and I just smack them again. like I can eat through that nerd's like immediately. just gone. Like, you just destroy. Yeah, same thing with off the record, Alrin. Like exactly. Like if they had off the record, bam, bam, down. Like, doesn't matter.
seconds of endurance once you get taken off the hook, as long as you don't do any conspicuous actions. This is intended
Endurance,
to give
what
you
is that?
enough time to make it to a loop if
Done.
the killer does tunnel you. If they hit you, you can use the speed boost to get there. If they don't, you can use the 10 seconds where they can't hit you. While on paper this seems like a good idea, there are a few problems with it. First of all, there's a chance there's no strong loops within 10 seconds of the hook. The killer chooses which hook to place you on, so they can place you on a hook near unsafe pallets or tiles which have already had their pallets broken. This means it can be feasible for the killer to just wait out the 10 seconds. What if there is a strong tile nearby? Then the killer simply hits the survivor as soon as possible. While not as ideal as the first situation, the killer now has to hit the survivor just one more time.
Yep.
This is obviously easier said than done.
Which is still, I will say that, even with endurance, which technically gives you a second health state, hitting somebody immediately off hook will always be faster than a formal double health state chase, where they actually had the chance to loop or get to resources. That chase, even while hitting through base kit BT, and technically still having 2 health states, is still quicker than a formal chase where they actually had to loop first to get that first hit. It's still time saved on the killer part.
Experienced survivor will make this difficult for the killer. The thing is with tunneling, is that it is usually the most
just flip him off.
inexperienced survivors that
She
the
just flip
killer
him off.
tunnels. It should also be noted that once the survivor does get hit, they have endurance, they will lose the ability to dead hard until they mend, making getting the last hit just a bit easier. Next we can look at both the perks Borrowed Time and Off the Record. Both these perks extend the endurance the survivor receives once they're taken off the hook. Borrowed Time extends the endurance by 10 seconds, so 20 seconds total, and Off the Record increases the endurance to be 80 seconds long. Like Base Kit Borrowed Time, these two perks give you time to make it to a loop. Because of the extended endurance, this makes it so the killer can't just wait it out if they want to tunnel you. Unfortunately, if the killer figures out that you're running any of these perks, they can just hit you as early as possible. It's the same situation that happens.
Brother, if I'm running Stabiffle, I just hit him anyway. It's free stacks, and I catch up and chase easy. Like, save the best for last just deletes endurance perks. It just, who cares?
It would hit you early.
And it's a very popular perk. It's Save the Best for Last is probably the strongest non-slowdown perk in the game. It's very commonly run, so it's not even an uncommon perk.
Because of this, these perks don't really help too much if the killer tunnels you straight off the hook, and are only really useful if the killer finds you a while after you've been hooked. Now we can look at Decisive Strike. Decisive Strike activates for 60 seconds after you've been unhooked, and allows you to stun the killer if they pick you up for 3 seconds. Decisive Strike is deactivated if you do conspicuous action. Before Decisive Strike was nerfed, it was the sole perk stopping most killers from tunneling.
Yep.
Now that the stun duration was changed from 5
This is what I was talking about earlier. With like, this didn't used to be a thing. Tunneling didn't used to be this popular. Even just the threat of DS existing would make people not tunnel. Because nobody wanted to eat a 5-second full stun after wasting all that time, right? Because essentially that makes it, like it would fill the gap and waste more time. Even so. So like we talked about, like, it's faster for a killer to chase somebody who came right off hook. Because a normal 30 to 40, a normal chase in Dead by Daylight is like, if you're fast about it, is 30 to 40 seconds. First health state, second health state. If you chase somebody off hook right away, they may have 2 health states, but if they're dead zone, they don't even get their endurance, right? Because you can just wait out the 10 seconds. So that's realistically like a 15 or 20 second chase. It's like about half. Old DS being at 5-second stun would allow somebody typically with those extra 2 seconds to make it to a new pallet, make it to a new tile, make it to a new structure. Like the right here, Haddonfield houses are very strong. And then extend the chase for an extra 15 to 20 seconds as well. Basically equating to a fresh chase, if not worse, depending on how well that person's looping. So it filled the gap. So killers were scared of that. That potentially they would waste more time than a normal fresh chase on tunneling someone. So it was something that they were worried about doing, and now they're just not that worried anymore. So it's just like, do whatever, right?
3 seconds. Most survivors don't even consider bringing it. This is because getting struck by Decisive Strike now is nowhere near as punishing as before. In fact, the 3-second stun means nothing to certain killers, like Nurse or Blight, who can catch up very quickly to the survivor.
Hey, Trashland, how's it going? How are you, friend? It's good to see you. Yeah, it's like Blight, Huntress, Nemesis, basically like most of the killers in the game. If you stun them within 3 seconds, they can be back on you and downing you almost immediately. So it's like, it's almost as if like the game has power crept the ability to have a 3-second stun. Like, of course that will still be helpful on some killers, like M1 killers, but like the game has power crept past the need for a 3 or like the effectiveness of a 3-second stun. Like, it really has.
Overall, Decisive isn't the most effective anti-tunnel perk, because even if you hit the killer with it, they can catch back up to you relatively quickly. So after looking at the counters to tunneling and how they just fall short, I hope you can now see...
Because the stun isn't the strong part. The ability, like I was saying earlier, the stun was not the strong part. The ability to reach a new loop was the strong part. That's why, I think it was Fire who told me this. Fire said that a good idea to change DS was keep the 3-second stun, but have... like, you be able to roll off the killer's shoulder and move immediately. Because even after you stun the killer, you have to, like, roll off their shoulder and land and then start moving. And that's a moment where you can't control your character. But if the stun, like, dropped you instantly and you could run, that would make it okay. Because it's not so much the stun as much as it is the ability for you to reach a new tile to start a fair chase. Because you're essentially, if you're being tunneled, you're in an unfair chase. So the ability to reach a resource to start a fair chase is the point of DS. But it doesn't have that right now, so yeah. Wouldn't be nearly as crazy as DS, yeah.
Tunneling is so strong. It's a strategy that isn't all that hard to pull off and one with few counters, all of which don't fully counter the playstyle. So how can we fix tunneling? Before we go over how to fix tunneling, we first must discuss why killers tunnel. I believe the reason most killers tunnel isn't to be toxic or mean. I think they do it because as it stands, tunneling is most of the time one of the best moves a killer can make.
Besides being a nice guy, there really is no reason for you not to be honest. Like, besides being a nice guy, like... I mean, I think it's cringy to play comp DBD in pubs. Like, but like... I don't know, you paid your $20, you're allowed to. It's really up to behavior to make that not the best play, or de-incentivize
As
that.
we've seen, a lot of the time tunneling is a win-win situation for the killer.
Yeah,
so if the killer's
besides being a
trying
nice
to win
person,
the
there's
game,
no reason
why
not
wouldn't
to.
they tunnel? Right now,
Nope.
killers have plenty of reasons to tunnel and few reasons not to. But why is this the case? What happened to make tunneling so prominent? Why is tunneling more common now than before?
DS being
I
deleted.
believe there's two main reasons for this. Lack of risk for tunneling and
Yep.
lack of incentive to not tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Let's first talk about the lack of risk when tunneling. Before, when Decisive Strike had a 5-second stun, there was always a
talked
risk
about this.
when chasing an unhooked survivor. You could spend ages chasing them just for them to stun you. The 5 seconds gave them plenty of time to get enough distance to possibly start another lengthy chase.
Yep.
As I mentioned before when I was talking about the counters, the new 3-second stun doesn't give survivors enough distance to extend a chase enough for the killer to care.
Yep,
Now let's talk about
that
the
right there, that's what
incentive
happens.
to not tunnel. Before, there were perks like Barbecue and Chili and Pop Goes the Weasel that encouraged you to leave the hook as soon
Such healthy perks for the game, and they gutted them! Same thing with We're Gonna Live Forever on the Survivor side. Perks that encouraged healthy gameplay styles were great! But hey, can't have a high perk usage rate, even if it's for the health of the video game. Nope,
as possible.
can't have that.
Barbecue also rewarded unique hooks. With these perks nerfed, there's less incentive to chase other survivors. Nowadays, hooking a survivor also gives you less pressure. Let me explain.
Yep. Most perks in the game aren't hook-based anymore. Like, most slowdown perks in the game that are really good don't require hooking. Overcharge, formerly Eruption, Jolt. Most perks that are really strong in the game, Deadlock, most strong, like, slowdown perks, don't require you to hook anymore. Like, they really don't. So, like, there's no reason to, like, you know, prioritize hooking people for, like, you know, like, the only one is, like, Pain Res. Like, Pain Res is the only, like, slowdown perk that retains its a need for a hook. Everything else, you don't really need it.
Before, when you hooked a survivor, you generated a good bit of pressure. The unhooked survivor needed to be saved and healed by another survivor. This occupied 2 survivors, so if you chased one different survivor, you'd only have 1 survivor on a gen.
Yep.
If you had gone back to tunnel the unhooked survivor, the unhooker could hop on a gen and you'd now instead be dealing with 3 survivors on gens. Coupled with the chance of the unhooked survivor having DS, tunneling wasn't as feasible. But nowadays it's different. When a survivor gets unhooked, they have plenty of options to self-heal themselves, whether that be with boons or medkits.
Yep.
This means instead of occupying 2 survivors after the survivor's unhooked, only 1.
That's why Circle of Healing will always be a good perk. No matter how much they nerf the numbers, it's the ability that's strong. The ability to just heal yourself independently allows someone else to sit on a gen instead of healing you. It's a net buff to Survivor to bring Circle of Healing. Now, a lot of people use this silly and use Circle of Healing wrong. They're like, hey, we have faster heal speed in this circle. It's like, no. The strength. That's why, it is always better to just self-heal yourself if a boon is up. So you can have that person be on a gen somewhere. It's just better.
Right. So now if you chase another survivor, you'll have 2 survivors on a gen. But if you were to chase the unhooked survivor now, without the risk of DS, chances are another survivor will try to protect them. In this situation, you still have 2 survivors working on a gen, but you also have an injured survivor who can't heal, another survivor who's giving you easier hits in order to save their teammate. Tunneling is now not only feasible, but the better option.
Yep.
So in order to fix tunneling, we need to make changes that incentivize killers to hook different survivors and to make changes to make hooking a recently unhooked survivor harder and more risky. We have to be very careful though when making the latter changes, because of the potential of survivors abusing them to take advantage of killers even when they don't tunnel. In order to try and make changes that are fair, I made a community post on my channel to ask my subscribers for ideas on how tunneling may be fixed to get some other views. I think I received some great ideas from them. I've used some of them along with my own ideas to create a list of changes that I think could help reduce tunneling in a manner that is both fair for killer and survivor.
Seriously Casual's animation sounds really
let's
cool.
go over changes to incentivize killers to hook different survivors. Change 1. After hooking a survivor, the killer receives haste for a short amount of time. This change would make it easier for killers to traverse the map after hooking a survivor. This would overall give them more pressure while also getting them away from the hook. The further they are from the hook, the less likely they are to go back to tunnel the survivor. This will make getting into a chase with a different survivor easier and incentivize the killer to do so. Change 2.
It doesn't de-incentivize tunneling. It incentivizes not tunneling, but it doesn't de-incentivize tunneling in any way. So it would just be kind of a net buff that doesn't really fix the problem. So I don't know about that. I have to think about that.
Incentive for unique hooks. This will simply encourage killers
give
to
barbecue
different
base kit.
survivors like old barbecue and chili did.
Yep.
There isn't much to explain with this change, as it is just a straight-up incentive.
Because this is actually a de-incentive. Wait, what just happened here? Wait, what? Wait, what? Did you guys see that? Wait.
There is.
What just happened? I was trying to make a point. You can blind him while flying?
There isn't much.
He's like, what? What is this? What is this clip?
Different survivors like old barbecue and chili did.
Brother, what?
There isn't much to explain with this change, as
and he gets it too. Is he fighting Felix or Batman?
Old barbecue and chili did. There isn't much to explain with this change, as it is just a straight up.
Okay, that's a thing. Holy moly!
For different survivors
I had no idea.
There isn't much to explain with this change, as it is just a straight up incentive to hook different.
Anyways, what I was gonna say was that barbecue chili actually de-incentivized tunneling because, like, you would literally mid-match go, okay, I only have 2 stacks. I need to go get my other stacks. Like, you would be like, okay, I gotta go get my other stacks, because if that person... the threat of getting, like, maybe a 3rd stack, the other person escaping through hatch, or, you know, losing the door game, you would you would lose out on that 3rd stack, which is, you know, minus to your blood points. That's more blood points that you missed out on. So that was actually good.
Change tree. Hooking a survivor disables their item for a period of time. This is probably the change that needs the most explaining, but I believe this could greatly incentivize killers to spread out their hooks.
Huh?
One reason I see for tunneling that killers often give is that it's the only way they can win against strong items. When survivors are toolbox, if you don't tunnel them, they'll do gens faster. If they get unhooked and you leave them, they'll hop in a gen with the toolbox, so the killer has to tunnel them to stop this. This goes the same for medkits.
Sounds like
if you leave the unhooked survivor,
this sounds like an item problem, not a tunneling problem.
They'll just heal themselves quickly, so the killer has to down them before they even get a chance to heal. With this change, this wouldn't be the case. Any recently unhooked survivor wouldn't be able to use their medkit to heal, or their toolbox to rush out.
This feels like whataboutism. This feels like whataboutism. This feels like people are tunneling because of the strength of items and not... Shouldn't we adjust the items then and not give some weird incentive to not tunnel to fix the strength of items?
This means the killer wouldn't need to tunnel survivors in order to counter their strong items. Also, if the whole team is strong items, the killer would now be encouraged to try and hook each of them in order to try and disable their items. This change would hopefully give killers a way to apply pressure by hooking different survivors.
Yeah, but Band-Aid fixes typically aren't
4. Remove the self-healing from Circle of Healing. While this change might seem random, as mentioned before, Circle of Healing and medkits allow unhooked survivors to heal themselves.
Circle of Healing is unfortunately in this unique situation that Deadheart is in, is that the effect is the problem. You could nerf the numbers all you want, but, like, the effect is the problem. Right? So, like, there's no way that, like, the perk in existence will always be strong unless you change the effect. But if you change the effect and it's not desirable, you just murder the perk entirely. Now, I'm not saying behavior won't do that, because behavior, quite frankly, doesn't care. They'll be like, yeah, screw it. We already have plenty of useless perks. Let's just add them to the box.
Without the need of another
But,
survivor.
yeah, that's
the ability to self-heal was removed, along with medkits getting disabled from previous
that's what you're looking at.
Then unhooked survivors would need to get healed by another survivor. This would give killers more pressure, as unhooking a survivor would occupy 2 survivors' time if the killer doesn't tunnel. That concludes all the changes I'd make to killers to try and incentivize them to hook different survivors. Now let's talk about some changes to survivors that makes getting tunneled harder.
Okay.
Change 1. Revert decisive strike to a 5-second stun.
Yep.
When I posted a community post, this was by far the most suggested idea, and for good reason.
It was just, like, Decisive Strike, Barbecue, and Corrupt Intervention were fine pre-6.1. They just were. Decisive Strike, Corrupt Intervention, and Barbecue and Chili were fine perks before 6.1. They got changed because of number values being too high for behavior's liking. They changed them specifically because they had high use rate, and not because they were actually unhealthy for the game, and the game suffered as a result. Please revert all 3 of those perks back to where they were. Please do it.
Decisive Strike punished killers for tunneling in a way that felt fair for both sides. That being said, I do think it's fair that DS disabled an endgame collapse.
Yep.
During this time, you don't have to worry about gens, so every survivor can go for the save and take hits for the unhooked survivor. There is a slight problem with this change though. Survivors with DS would be able to use the base kit borrow time to take hits for the unhooker, and a killer wouldn't be able to punish them for it because DS would make chasing them too lengthy. This leads us on to the next change. Change 2. Lose collision while they have base kit B2.
I've seen this suggested a lot.
How this change would work is while base kit borrow time is active, you lose collision so you and the killer can pass through each other. This stops the killer from body blocking you to wait out BT, but also stops the unhooked survivor from taking hits for the unhooker because the killer can just go through them. Change 3. Base kit endurance timer.
I don't know about that because, like, let's think about this in, like, a scenario, right? Like I want to tunnel someone. I unhook them and they don't have collision, so I can't immediately eat through their endurance, right? And they have no collision until the 10 seconds are up. That would make it basically to where they're still allowed to use, like, Dead Hard after that. So if they have Dead Hard, that works. But if they don't, I don't know if that... It would be an improvement. But unless they have Dead Hard, waiting out the 10 seconds without collision... I mean, that does buy at least 10 seconds of time, I guess. It would be an improvement. I don't know if it would be... It might be marginal improvement and not, like, significant improvement, but it would be improvement.
Paused while in chase. This change
I've seen this a lot, too.
The last change. While in a chase, the base kit borrow time timer won't go down. This means if the killer tries to chase you straight off the hook, you'll have no collision and they won't be able to hit you. This also means if the killer finds you a little while after you've been hooked, but they haven't been chasing you, they'll be able to down you. This would hopefully allow the survivor to get to a safe area, disincentivize the killer chasing the unhooked survivor, and not keep the survivor invulnerable for too long so they can't abuse it.
But this is the problem, is like what I was talking about, is like you're saying not abuse it. Like, I feel like this one can be abused, right? I feel like this one can be abused, this one can. I feel like people would, like, find a way to abuse that.
Fair way.
Yeah, the clip, yeah.
That concludes the changes
Get
that
missing
make
and just
survivors that make
desing.
them harder to tunnel in a way that hopefully can't be abused. To give some final thoughts on all the mentioned changes, the goal of these changes isn't to make either survivor or killer stronger, but to reduce the effectiveness of tunneling. In order to do that, buffs need to be made to both killer and survivor to make hooking different survivors more viable and to make tunneling overall.
These windows are on the opposite side of the house now.
This
is weird.
But I hope these changes will make the game feel more fun and fair for both sides. If you have any ideas about changes you'd make to reduce tunneling, please leave a comment down below. I'm sure there's plenty more good ideas that I haven't thought of. Finally, I'd like to thank you for making this far, and I hope you enjoyed your time.
I did.
I'd also like to thank all the people who took the time to comment on the community post I made. If you liked this video, you may enjoy some of my other videos. Currently,
we watched the big one.
18.5% of people who watch my videos are subscribed.
Which you should. You do it right now. If you're watching a react and you're not subbed to the person that the video is from, you're a jerk. You're a meanie head. You're a bad person. Do it right now. You're a bad person.
So if you're not subscribed and you'd like to see more videos like this, I'd ask that you do subscribe. If you'd like to see behind the scenes of my videos or updates about upcoming videos, you can follow me on Twitter. That's all for now. Thank you and goodbye.
Yeah, I feel like, obviously, losing collision would be an improvement. I don't know if it fixed the problem, but improvement. Obviously, bringing back DS is kind of like the fix, right? Because back in the day, 4.6.10, tunneling happened, like I told you earlier, like, there's like 4 out of 5 games that I play have tunneling. Back in the day, it'd be like, I would have tunneling like 1 in 5 games. Because killers knew if they had DS, they would, no polite way to put it, they would eat shit for it, right? Like, they would have a bad time if they were wrong. So, yeah, I think that's like, I think those are like the big things that are missing that would make, and maybe you don't need both. Maybe you just need one or the other. Maybe you don't need both. Maybe you just need one or the other, but those would be the things. Obviously, like, also, like, revert corrupt intervention, revert barbecue and chili, and just have those things that made the game, like, feel better to play from a non-super comp-heavy, intense gameplay direction back in the game. Let us run a mildly good but not oppressive slowdown that just helps a lot. Let us run a perk that rewards us for not tunneling. Let us literally go out of our way to not tunnel people so we can get more blood points because we just like blood points. Let us do these things. I know they had a high use rate, but, like, who cares? They were good for the game's health. They were literally good for the game's health, so just, like, let them live, you know? I just don't get the logic. I just don't. So, yeah, those would be my 4 things, right? Technically 3, because I would probably do either, like, the collision thing or DS. Probably one or the other, not both. Yeah, I would take those 3 changes. I think that would help. I think there's stuff that's been suggested for a while. And I think, like, it's been the elephant in the room. It's just like with the eruption thing. Like, everybody knew eruption was a little too strong. But, like, behavior didn't do anything about it for like that was the anniversary last year, dude. Like, we are a year ahead. The anniversary's coming up again. You understand that? Like, we're getting close to a year since that's been a thing. They're just kind of like, yeah, eruption's fine. I feel like this is another thing. They're just like, yeah, I know, we know the game. We know people tunnel more in the game, but, like, who cares? Like, it's time to address the elephant in the room. You did eruption, now it's time to address the tunneling thing, so. Yeah.